Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Quail Forest Community Podcast, where neighbors meet neighbors. I'm your host, Mark Stein. This show is all about helping us get to know the wonderful people who live right here in Quail Forest and introducing trusted local organizations and resources, especially those that support our senior residents. Together, we're building a stronger, more connected community, one conversation at a time. Today, we've got a special episode lined up for you. We're excited to have two fantastic guests and residents of Quail Forest, Tom Lang and Tod Eckhouse. They're actually neighbors, right next door neighbors. Tom is a retired healthcare professional with a deep passion for personal fitness. He's developed a very methodical, data-driven approach to reaching fitness goals. And I'm personally excited to hear his insights and how we can all apply these methods to improve our own well-being. After Tom, we hear from Tod Eckhouse, who will share his fascinating experiences from the world of commercial aviation. I think it's general aviation, including some harrowing stories that you won't want to miss. Let's get started. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Thrive Quail Forest Podcast. We're on location in Oldsmar, Florida, at the end, so you may hear some background noise, but I'm happy to have with me Tom Lang and Tod Eckhouse, and they're going to present today. So we've got audience members out in front, so they'll be talking to us through Zoom here. And Tom's going to kick it off. He is a healthcare professional, retired, and is going to talk about personal fitness. And he has a very methodical approach to using data to work on our fitness goals. So I'm really interested in hearing that, and I'm sure you will too. He'll be followed up with Tod Eckhouse, who will talk about his commercial aviation experience, some harrowing stories, and we'll hear him after Tom. So give us a chance to switch places here, and we'll get started. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you, Mark. You want that? Hello. My objective this morning is to raise awareness and impart knowledge about practical, time-efficient, cost-effective approach and habit any individual can adopt to manage their own physical fitness to improve and maintain the good health. First of all, I'm going to talk about exercise or physical activity and how it can and should be managed by any individual, regardless of age or current physical condition. Regular exercise/physical activity contributes to good health. It strengthens the heart and the lungs, tones the muscles, prevents or mitigates weight gain, and contributes to brain health and mental health fitness. It is undisputed that individuals who exercise regularly are healthier, are less dependent upon medical intervention by their physician, require less intensive management of hereditary chronic disease conditions, have lower rates of hospital admissions, and shorter lengths of stays when hospitalized. Today, I'm going to focus on how exercise can be managed by explaining how it can be measured. If you were to seek advice from someone who is known to exercise regularly, the questions will be along the lines of, how do you exercise? How often do you exercise? When do you exercise? It is unlikely, however, that the following questions would be part of this conversation. How do you determine, or have you determined, if you are getting enough, too much, or too little exercise? Are you able to measure if you are exercising too much or too little? In other words, these last two questions point to the science of physical activity and how to measure and quantify the value of regular exercise based upon standards which have already been established. The solution is the concept of cardiorespiratory fitness as the standard for and measure of regular exercise. And again, it's the concept of cardiorespiratory fitness. It describes the interdependence of the respiratory system, of the respiratory system and the circulatory systems, the heart and the vascular function, to supply oxygen and nutrients to the large skeletal muscles of the body when those muscles are in active use during physical exertion, i.e. exercise. The measure of cardiorespiratory fitness is VO2 max, or maximal oxygen uptake. The formula calculates the millimeters of oxygen per kilogram of body mass per minute of time. In other words, it's how your muscles are using the oxygen. It's an indicator. The measurement of cardiorespiratory fitness is used by athletes for improving their speed and endurance in individual sports competitions, running, cycling, and swimming. Within the exercise physiology profession, it is considered as the single best measure of aerobic fitness. The currently accepted standard for measuring cardiorespiratory fitness is an exercise stress test that is performed while the body is under physical exertion. It requires the use of a stationary bicycle or treadmill, a heart rate monitor, and a metabolic cart, which measures breathing and respiration. However, and this is probably one of the most important elements of this presentation, advances in heart rate monitoring, or HRM is the acronym, technology have also included the research and development of an embedded algorithm within inexpensive heart rate monitors for evaluating and measuring the activity of the monitored resting heart rate. These advances have resulted in the development of a non-exercise cardiorespiratory fitness test, the acronym of NECFT. The NECFT requires the use of a heart rate monitor that includes the embedded algorithm, which can provide an acceptable and reliable estimate of cardiorespiratory fitness while the individual is at rest. Consequently, the stress-free nature of the NECFT makes it the most practical, safe, and risk-free diagnostic test for measuring an individual's cardiorespiratory fitness. In simple terms, inexpensive, wrist-based heart rate monitors are capable of continuously recording and reporting in real time an individual's heart rate. These heart rate monitors can be programmed with the individual's physical characteristics, age, gender, weight, height, and including, of most importance, the individual's age-based maximum heart rate. These heart rate monitors have pre-programmed heart rate intensity levels, which can record, report, and summarize an exercise session in terms of the time spent in each intensity zone. In other words, how hard your actual heart is beating. The higher the intensity of the physical activity, the greater the benefit to the individual's cardiorespiratory fitness. Finally, and most importantly, these monitors can synchronize with the device manufacturer's website via the user's mobile phone and/or the user's laptop for recording the user's measured physical activity over time to enable the user to effortlessly track their regular physical activity over time. So what are the takeaways from this presentation? Physical activity can be efficiently measured, recorded, and reported via features available within inexpensive wrist-based heart rate monitors. These heart rate monitors include robust setup and programmable features intended to simplify and customize their use by the owner. These heart rate monitors synchronize with the manufacturer's website for pre-programming by the user of personalized exercise sessions, analysis of the most current exercise session, and the analysis of the user's cardiorespiratory fitness level currently and over time, according to age and gender-based standards. Before I conclude this presentation and address questions from those in attendance, I foresee the opportunity to expand upon today's topic within the broader and more important issue. And my ultimate objective of improving and expanding the importance of our federal government's inclusion of greater and more rigorous attention to preventive health care within the practice of primary care medicine. Any questions?
Did you bring the heart rate monitor?
No, but I didn't, but they are, they're risk-based, good, best heart rate monitors out there that will do this. Will cost you between $150 and $200. Okay, they're risk-based. Okay, and there are more things I can elaborate because the market for most of these heart rate monitors are from athletes, enthusiasts, younger people. But however, what the manufacturers do is they want to basically upgrade to the more expensive features, which have more robust features. And but the basic monitor, and it's manufactured by a company called Polar, Polar, as in okay. It's a Finnish-based company. They are the undisputed authority in terms of heart rate monitored exercise. They preceded all this development by some of these other manufacturers that come into being, and they're the authority. They've developed the algorithm. And what's interesting to me is that you don't need all the elaborate, yeah. But the problem is here is that it's difficult in terms of offering these services to the people that are in most need of it. People that are not active athletes, that are older, and the whole intent of this approach, and I'll give you some information, is that everything I've covered here today is accessible on my website. And that website is, and I'll give it to you, and I'll write it down too. It's called exermetrics.com. And I'll explain it. It's EXERMETRX. Now let's take it apart. EXER is a short way of saying exercise. MET is a measure, a metric. And metric is a measure, okay? And the reason I have the last two words saying RX, because the intent is to use this technology for the management of preventive or the encouragement of preventive health care, so that it is embedded in the practice of primary care medicine. Now, everything I'm kind of elaborating on outside of the presentation can be researched on this website, okay? I've done the research. By the way, for any other questions, the American Heart Association in 2016 has recommended, this is American Heart Association, the authority of cardiovascular fitness, preventive care, a cardiorespiratory fitness test should be something that is administered by a physician as a common practice in primary care medicine, along with heart rate, pulse, blood pressure, all the standard, and it's easy to do. The technology allows for it because it can be it can be measured as a non-exercise test. You're not stressing people. Even though and this is what they've done, measured as a non-exercise test, and can be developed within a protocol for a physician to be able to make prescriptions, exercise prescriptions, okay? And this is part of the opportunity in terms of improving preventive health care. Sure.
I assume you calculate maximum heart rate.
Yeah.
So,
And bear in mind, is the research that I've conducted has extended from meeting with Medicare to reading the literature and I really didn't have to evaluate many models of heart rate monitors to decide upon the use of the polar monitor. And all I can tell you is that my website, the content I provided, will basically provide a research, verifiable research, the background of everything I'm talking about. And but going back in terms of a heart rate monitor, the technology has advanced. I need to get a thing of water here. Maybe share. Where typically you would have to wear a chest strap. The chest strap would enable monitor your heart rate. And you put the chest strap on. That's what was developed. They've developed technology where this is now detectable on the wrist. So, and you put it there, and it's very reliable. So what is happening is your heart rate is being recorded as you exercise. It's recorded, and it is able to be recorded and reported relative to standards. There are standards out there. Okay, and this is all, I mean, without going into more detail, in fact, I would contemplate this presentation being one of several. In addition to allowing interested parties to access the website and the literature that I've reported. And it's well. What is surprising to me and kind of discouraging is I made a presentation to Medicare, 3 years ago. Why don't you do this? Here's the research, and I communicated with an organization. Well, actually, the Preventive Care, United States Preventive Healthcare Services website. Okay. Preventive Healthcare Services. This is all, within how medicine is practiced and the research is being done. And it's just not at a level where it's understood. And part of what I'm trying to do is to simplify the understanding based upon the facts and the research. And for example, when I work out, it takes me 10 seconds to program my watch. I go in there, and I still use a heart rate strap, and I basically report that to the manufacturer's website. It comes up, so I can see over time, how efficient I am in my exercise, because the standards that have been established are basically the number of minutes of exercise that one does over a period of time. Okay, and I again. There's so many aspects to this that one has to kind of take it piece by piece. It's almost like a course, frankly, for people to understand it. And physicians don't understand it, but I've done research where I work with a primary care physician, and we actually had the personnel performing cardiorespiratory fitness tests on the patients. So basically in that situation, they can report, look, your cardiorespiratory fitness is low, Then it gets to the whole issue of, well, how do you then prescribe regular exercise prescriptions, And that protocol has been developed as well. It's fairly straightforward to understand, and it's low risk. But, it's just, I've been in healthcare. It's still all about making money in the United States, frankly. And yeah, and it's, and it's just the nature of the beast. But if in fact you and in trying to talk with these authorities, in terms of what is preventive healthcare, and preventive healthcare, you have an organization that really they don't understand latest technology. The technology is there to be able to, for anyone to basically monitor and report how physically active they are.
Okay.
Okay.
Help me. I want to incorporate, and I know that I need to measure my resting heart rate. And when I'm exercising, I need to get a certain, up to a certain level. So can you talk us through the?
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
Maybe in the next, you would give it 5 minutes.
Okay.
And how I do it, how do you do it? How do you calculate the maximum heart rate?
Okay. Maximum heart rate. Okay. Maximum heart rate is typically a function of age. Okay. And I think normally there's a formula. It's 220 minus your age. Okay, that's your maximum heart rate. I believe there's another formula too. Okay, but it's established. Okay, so and then the Department of Health and Human Services in the federal government has published, standards of physical exercise in terms of the number of minutes you need to do per week. And it's if you and it's divided between vigorous exercise and moderate exercise. Okay. In other words, and vigorous exercise gives you twice the benefit. Okay. So that being said, I exercise. I exercise at a vigorous level. Okay. I exercise 3 times a week, 50 minutes. Okay. And of that 50 minutes, I'm probably exercising at a vigorous level for anywhere from 35 to 40 minutes. Okay. Now, the requirement for a person doing that is 75 minutes a week. Okay. So I exceed that by about 150%. And I'm devoting 3-4 hours of my time. Sounds like a pretty good return on investment to me in your health. I mean, the concept is irrefutable in my view. Okay. And if you exercise at a moderate level, and the moderate level is a function of your maximum heart rate, and there are levels, okay, what they recommend. And they're all published. I mean, in one presentation, which I indicated to you before, Mark, this is probably deserves more than one presentation to walk people along. But that being said, in the interim, you can the whole protocol. If you want to go into the website that I've created, exermetrics.com, EXERMETRX. Let me break it down again. Exer meaning exercise. Metrics is a measure. And the reason I have instead of METRICX or CS, RX, because it's intended to facilitate a prescription recommendation by your doctor with respect to your level of cardiorespiratory fitness, because it's an indication of, your preventive health care, things you do to preserve your health.
What is your resting?
My resting heart rate, 45 beats per minute. My resting heart rate. I get my heart rate up to almost 150 beats a minute when I'm exercising. And my maximum heart rate is 164 beats a minute, according to the calculation. Okay.
Years ago, when I used to ride a bike, regularly, I get mine back down to 40.
Not surprised. Well, you're lean. I mean, it's probably,
So 220 minus my age gives me maximum heart rate. And then I should do that for total of 50 minimum when the recommended is 55 minutes. So what you're doing.
well, if you do moderate, let's say you want to do moderate exercise. Okay, moderate exercise. I don't know the percentages there. Moderate exercise is a certain percentage of your maximum heart rate. It's anywhere from 50% to maybe 75. Vigorous is 75 to 90. Those are the two categories. So if you get more, if you're more intense in the exercise you're performing, you're getting twice the benefit per unit of time. But that being said, so I exercise 75 minutes to do it at a moderate level. It's 150 minutes a week. I mean, it's a no-brainer. It's just a question of, just the medical industrial complex doesn't want people to know this. Instead you're seeing commercials all the time in terms of, take this pill to reduce your weight, average body weight within the population is increased over time. We all see that, okay? But that's not a criticism of people. It's simply that people don't understand the nature of exercise, that you don't need to be, an aggressive, exercise warrior,
Talk about diet, and we probably need to start wrapping up.
I think this, in my view, based upon what I've done, the research and the complexity, I think if any of you were to look at the website and see what I've dealt with, you'll understand that this is not a 30-minute conversation, okay?
And I
That
would
you
like
gotta-
to have you back.
Of course, but the website's there, and it's all categorized. And in fact, I have, for greater information, it is basically all you need to do is go to info@extrametrics.com and send an email for request. The fact of the matter is, it's not something I'm advertising. I'm still developing, and what's important to me is to get the attention of the medical community and Medicare, and I've tried that, and to build awareness and to encourage people, because so what's the cost to do this? Well, you got to spend $150 for a monitor. You don't need to buy, the BMW, okay, of the monitor. And in fact, I've developed instructional materials to allow people to understand how to program it, and with very little time required to do that, okay? And that can be done even in a group session if they want to do it. And I had a reseller agreement where I was selling these monitors before when with the first stage of these monitors. I've been doing this since 2010. Okay. So, and I've used the previous generation of technology, and what has improved right now is astonishing to me in terms of, yes.
First, sorry because we are late.
Oh, no, please don't apologize.
What's your recorded video? But anyway, how old are you?
I'm 71.
Can you?
My body mass index is well below standards, my resting heart rate. And again, the whole point of why your resting heart rate is an indicator of health. When you look at elite athletes, who was the guy that was the cyclist? His resting heart was like 38. Lance Armstrong. Lance Armstrong.
What is your?
Maybe you should have named him Lance Hartstrong.
What's
So,
your rest of the blood pressure?
no, it's well below.
Yeah, but
I don't. I mean, it's 90 over 120 or something like that. It's low. I don't know the figure, but I've tested it many times. And you're supposed to test your blood pressure in the morning before you're. I'll go down to the little kiosk in the Publix there. I'm not sure what the name of the application is. Yeah. Okay. For the cuff. Okay.
Can
But-
you see again the name of your website?
My website, and I'll write it down for you too. It's extra. In fact, I'll write it. Tell you what.
no.
No, wait. Okay. I'm sorry.
You get it and give your email address and your phone number if you're okay with Quail Forest people reaching out.
Okay. Why don't you pass these around to Isabella and okay, and basically I'll give it to you. You write it down. Just take one. They're just pass that around after the fact. Okay.
You can get it on the podcast. We'll wrap up.
Right.
The website, your email address. Again.
Okay. Basically, the website is exermetrix.com. Its pronunciation is exermetrics. I'll say it again. exermetrix.com. Okay.
Email.
And an email address to inquire after you read anything there is info@exermetrics.com.
Phone number if you want.
Phone number, I'd rather, okay, I follow my emails. I'm particularly interested in emails coming into the the website. And again, the intent is, I'm not trying to build a business. I'm trying to increase awareness of what is the right thing to do. And how that material and how that, transforms is a function of people understanding the common sense of regular exercise. It's just common sense.
Cool.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Tom. So now coming up is Tod Eckhouse, who's going to talk about some experiences he's had with flying.
Hello, my name is Tod Eckhouse. I've been asked to speak about flying, and I'm not a professional pilot, but I do have a fair amount of experience. I've been flying for 40 years, I guess. I can't believe it's been that long, but for 40 years, and I've flown different types of airplanes. I'm a licensed private pilot, and I'm multi-engine rated. I can fly airplanes with more than one engine. I have an instrument rating, which means I can fly through clouds and I can land without actually having to see the ground or in order to navigate. And a helicopter. I'm also licensed to fly helicopters. I developed this interest through fact that I married a woman whose father is a pilot in the Air Force. He was a colonel. He was chief pilot of Strike Command out of MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa, Florida, and 30,000-hour pilot, and he taught me to fly. So I was taught by the best. I certainly don't consider myself the best, but it became a fascination for me. I'm still interested in it, although I really don't fly anymore. I don't own airplanes anymore. I found flight as being very interesting. The concept of flying. Why does something fly through the air? How does it do that? And believe it or not, it dates back the beginning of the concept, not necessarily of flight, but of different pressure variables, which is what flying is about. High pressure, low pressure areas. Came from a Swiss mathematician by the name of Daniel Bernoulli. And he wrote a book on hydrodynamics. You're not going to believe this, in 1738. And his principle stated that an increase in the speed of a fluid occurs simultaneously with the decrease in pressure or the decrease in the fluid's potential energy. We all understand that, right? I mean, that's real simple. We think about that every single day, don't we? But it is interesting. I think that concept was proven back in the 1700s. And the actual first flight was in, I think, 1908 in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, by the Wright brothers, who built an airplane that, and what they did was they put it on top of a hill out by the beach, put it on rails, and it went down, and it built up enough speed to where it was able to lift up off the ground and flew for, I'm told, 800 feet. I don't think it was really that far, but it flew, but with no engine. It just glided. And it's because of those pressure differentials between the pressure on top of a wing versus the pressure on the bottom of it. So when the concept is that when a fluid accelerates over a surface, when a fluid runs over the top of a surface of like a wing, it increases speed. And that increase in speed creates a lower pressure area. On top of an airplane wing, the wing is typically curved like this. Curved, and then it goes down. The bottom of the wing tends to be straight, or much straighter than the top of the wing. So the air, as it comes over the top of the wing, accelerates, and the speed of it accelerates, and the bottom of the wing, it doesn't accelerate. So that creates a pressure differential where the top is low pressure, the bottom is higher pressure because it doesn't accelerate as fast as the top. And so you can look at it like a push from the bottom and like a vacuum cleaner from the top, sucking it up. And that's what makes an airplane fly, is those pressure differentials. And those pressure differentials with the type of airplanes we have today, like the military, for an example, has an SR-71, which is was used as a spy plane. And the thing, when they put fuel in it, it actually dripped fuel on the runway because they had to give the metal, the aluminum metal outside the plane, an opportunity to expand because it goes so fast that the outside of the airplane got up to 800 degrees. You could imagine that flying, at that speed and at that kind of a temperature on the outside of the airplane. But the thing would go to like 70,000 feet or even higher. And that's what was one of the things we used to spy with, the military used to spy. Flying has certain standards that have been established. I don't know how they were established, really. Excuse me. But pressure differentials have to do, also are affected by temperature levels. Excuse me. What I do? I got a call.
Okay, you want some water?
Yeah. So those of you who have any interest in flying and what makes an airplane fly, it's the flow of the fluid, which in this case is air, which is considered a fluid, just like water would be considered a fluid. The pressure differentials that allow the wing to pull up the weight of the airplane itself. I've had a number of experiences, interesting experiences over the years that I've been flying. Some of them I'll talk about, and some I don't want to talk about. but one interesting experience I had back, and I'm going back when I was in my 20s. Can't believe I was ever that young, but I was stationed at the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And while I was there, we got to travel around a little bit, but I didn't get to Aspen, Colorado while I was stationed. When I got out of the Air Force, that's when I actually really got active in flying. And I flew to Colorado Springs, Colorado from Tampa, Florida, to visit Aspen, Colorado. Well, the airport at Aspen, Colorado is at 8,000 feet above sea level. To fly in, I had to go to 13,000 feet to cross a couple mountains. to get into the airport. But when I got over that last mountain, I was looking down at the airport that was 6,000 feet below me. And I had to lose over a mile of altitude before I could land, which takes a while. You know, you had to circle and descend and do that in a safe manner, which I did. But when I was doing that, the traffic controller said, descend north of the field. Do your descent north of the field. So that's what I was doing, circling, and I was coming down and down and down. And finally, I got 1,000 feet above the ground where I could actually enter the traffic pattern. And I noticed that there was another airplane that was in the traffic pattern doing touch and goes. And touch and go is when an airplane comes in to land and they touch down and land. And then they push the throttles back up and they take off again and they come around and they do it. That's practicing how you land, how you increase your expertise in landing. Well, I was ready to land. I got down, my altitude got down to where it needed to be. There was another airplane in the traffic pattern flying in opposite direction, flying to the north. And I was already north of the airplane, headed south. So the two airplanes were headed in opposite directions, headed toward each other. And the traffic controller said, caution, airplane opposite direction, doing touch and goes, opposite direction. So I said, okay, and we looked and I saw the traffic and I said, Bonanza 27 Charlie has the traffic. The other airplane said Cessna bump, 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 has the traffic. And we just flew around each other. And I landed and he went around again and was doing his touch and goes. I taxied up to the little terminal there for the operation. And the other airplane did its last touch and go and taxied up while I was unloading luggage in my airplane. Well, I got my luggage unloaded and I needed a ride into town. So I walked into the office to ask them about, getting a ride into town, into Aspen. And I looked at the person that was in the office and I thought, he looks familiar. Where do I know him from? And I thought, that's John Denver. So John Denver was in the facility almost acting like he worked there. He was behind the counter and he had papers he was writing on and stuff. And I thought, this is really weird. John Denver, what? He's a singer, he doesn't work in it. He doesn't work behind the counter at an airport. And so that was an interesting scenario that I was able to experience. I didn't really talk to him, although I could tell from his expression that he knew that I was the other airplane. And that he kind of wanted to say something to me about it, but he didn't. And I kind of wanted to say something to him about it, and I didn't. And that was kind of the end of it, But
How much later was it that he died in the plane crash?
well, he died in a plane crash.
Maybe 76.
Yeah, I would say maybe 10 years after I won't use the term ran into him.
Tell him how he died.
Well, the way John Denver died was he was famous when I first saw him, had experience with him, but he became even more famous after that and started making a ton of money. And so he and his father was a Air Force colonel pilot, stationed in Denver, Colorado. What was the question again?
He dies.
Oh, yeah. So he started making a lot of money, and he bought different airplanes. And there was an airplane called a Long Easy, and it was a really kind of a home built airplane. But it was a popular airplane people like to fly. It was a pretty easy airplane to fly, and had a pretty good speed and a good price. It was not that expensive. So he decided he wanted to buy a Long Easy, and he went, I think it was to California. He flew to California, I think it was California, to look at one that was for sale that somebody owned. And so he, I guess, negotiated on it, and they agreed to a price and everything. But John Denver wanted to fly it, which before he bought it. And so he got in the airplane and took it off. And as I understand it, it was written up in Flying Magazine. One of the fuel tanks went empty, and so the engine quit. And he couldn't figure out, or didn't know how to switch tanks to the other tank that had fuel in it. So the engine quit, and apparently he was trying to switch tanks, or trying to find the lever to switch the tank, and wasn't able to do it, and crashed in a lake. Landed in a lake, and they believe what happened was when he landed, he hit his head or somehow knocked himself out and drowned. That's what happened. Okay, I have a lot of different experiences in flying. One of them was that I used to use an airplane to show land to developers. So it's a good way to look at land. You fly over the land, and you can, in a short period of time, get a good sense of where it sits in relation to other properties, so forth. Well, one day I had a meeting, and I can't remember exactly what it was. It was a business meeting, but it was down in Miami, and we live in Tampa. And my airplane wasn't available to fly that day. It was in the shop. But I had a friend who owned an airplane, and I just told him I needed an airplane, and could I borrow it? He said, yeah. And so I took a partner of mine down to Miami, but first I had to pick him up in Kissimmee, Florida. And a guy that worked for him. Now, the guy that worked for him is the subject of this little story. He was a big boy. He weighed, I would say, at least 350 pounds. But we were able to stuff him in the airplane. So we get him in the airplane, we're flying down to Miami, and we land about lunchtime. And our meeting wasn't until about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so we were early. And we got out of the airplane, and this fella that was in the backseat of the airplane, Slim, I'll call him Slim, the 350-pound guy. He said, I'm hungry. It's lunchtime. I'm hungry. I'd like to get something to eat. We said, what do you want to eat? He says, well, why don't we go to McDonald's? Okay, we'll go to McDonald's. So we went to McDonald's, and this guy ordered 2 Big Mac meals and 2 large chocolate milkshakes. And he drank both of those milkshakes and ate both meals. And what are you looking at me for? So the point is, it's important that you understand that he was a big boy and he ate a big lunch, 2 big lunches. Well, after we had our meeting, came back out to the airport to fly back to Tampa. We get him in the back seat, and this was the summertime, and it was hot that day. It was very hot. It had to be in the mid-high 90s with a feels like temperature of I don't know what, 110 or whatever. It was hot. It was very, very hot. And so we're flying back from Miami at about 10,000 feet where it was cool. I did it on purpose just so we'd have some cool air. But then, I had to descend to land. So we were descending and it's getting warmer and warmer and warmer and warmer. And this guy sitting in the back seat, Slim, said, well, I don't feel so good. And I said, we'll be on the ground in a minute. And it was also bumpy because of the heat rising off the ground. So the airplane's doing this, and Slim, he don't feel so good. And I said, just relax, take deep breaths, just relax. We're going to be on the ground in just a few minutes. Well, he threw up. 2 Big Mac meals and 2 large chocolate shakes.
Where
Tell
did he
him.
vomit?
Oh, well, he vomited. I didn't know. I mean, I was flying the plane, so I didn't know exactly where he vomited. And it wasn't my plane, so I assumed that. I said, are you okay? And he says, yeah. I said, well, did you find, where did you? He said, oh, it's okay. He said, it's taken care of, like I've taken care of this thing. So, okay, so we land. And he gets out of the airplane, as did my partner. I dropped both of them off, and then I had to take the plane, fly it back to St. Petersburg, where it lived. But it didn't smell good in the airplane. And the temperature was 100 plus. It felt like 100 plus degrees. And the plane, it was a twin engine airplane, and it was a fast airplane. But it smelled so bad that I wasn't willing to fly it up at a higher altitude, just to cool off. I was only interested in getting it to the next destination as fast as it would go. And so I flew it at about 800 feet off the ground at about 220 miles an hour. Just trying to get back so I could land it and breathe before I threw up. So anyway, I get the airplane on the ground, I taxi it up, and I told the lineman, the fellow that takes care of the plane disposition, that somebody had thrown up in the airplane. I still didn't know where he'd thrown up. I knew he was in the back seat. I knew he was in the back seat, but I didn't see anything, and I thought, oh, I'm smelling this, it's got to be near. So I unzipped the behind the one of the seats was a zipper where you had an area to store things like maps or headphones, flying paraphernalia. And I unzipped it, and it just, the odor just attacked me. And he had thrown up in that zipper pocket. and didn't tell me that that's what he had done, you know? I assumed that
Under control.
I assumed that he grabbed a bag or something and, you know, threw up in it, but that's not what he did. He unzipped this thing, and so I'm thinking, oh my God, this is terrible. You know, how do you clean that? So I gave the lineman $20 bill, and I said, look, somebody threw up in the back of this seat in the pocket. And I got to get it clean because it's not my airplane. He said, don't worry, I'll take care of it. So, okay. So I gave him $20. Thinking, this is great. Okay. He's going to take care of it. Nobody will ever know. The owner of the airplane will never know. Well, 2 or 3 days later, I get a telephone call from the owner of the airplane. And he said, what happened with the airplane? I said, nothing. You know, what do you mean nothing? I said, well, you know, I took it down to Miami. And, he said, but did somebody get sick or something? He said, there's a terrible odor in that plane, and that's where I kept my headset, a new headset that he had purchased for $200 or $300. And he said, I went to take the airplane out, and I unzipped that seat pocket, and I put my hand down in it and pulled out the headset, and it had gunk all over it, you know. And he said, did somebody throw up in that pocket? And I said, yeah, somebody did. I said, but I paid the line guy $20 to clean it up. And he said, well, he didn't clean it up. He kept the 20 and he didn't clean it up. He was mad. He was very, very mad. So that was one of the experiences.
You can tell us one more 5-minute story. We'll need to wrap up and so they can.
I'll tell another story. At the time, I was in real estate, and as I mentioned earlier, I was selling land. And one of the ways I showed the land was to put like a land developer in the airplane and fly him over the property. And that way he could see everything. He could see roadways and how it lined up with everything else. So this one day, I was going to fly this fellow who was a well-known local developer, very wealthy guy. 300 acres of property down in Sarasota. And he met me at the airport, and I put him in my plane, which at that time was a twin-engine Cessna 421, which was a high-powered airplane and could fly at a high altitude. I could go up to 30,000 feet with it because it was pressurized. So I do the run up for the airplane, checking everything out, make sure everything's working properly. And I tell the tower, okay, you know, ready for takeoff. And the tower said, well, he said, there's a system, a small system that's coming toward the airport that has got a lot of rain with it and wind. So you might want to wait for that. He didn't say I had to, but he said you might want to wait for that. It should pass over in a few minutes. So I said, all right. So we're waiting for the storm to pass over, and sure enough, the rain starts to come down, and it poured, and it poured as hard as I've ever seen it rain. I've really never seen it rain any harder than that. But finally, the storm passed over the airport, and the tower operator said, okay, he says, you've still got some runway some water on the runway. And, you know, you might want to wait a little bit for that water to drain off the runway. before you take off. I said, okay, so I'm at one end of at the runway ready to go. And at the other end of the runway was a flock of seagulls. And I'm going to say they were on the ground, on the runway. And I'm going to say there were about 100 of them, about 100 seagulls on the ground. And so I'm at the takeoff end of the runway, and they're at the end of the runway, which that runway was, they were probably 2,500 feet ahead of me, well over 2,000 feet ahead of me. And the tower operator said, okay, 27 Charlie, you're cleared for takeoff. And this was a twin engine airplane. And so I've done my pre-flight, and I push the throttles up to take off, and the airplane starts to move at a gaining speed. And I get about 3/4 of the way down the runway, and I hit about 2 inches of water that was on the runway that the tower operator said wasn't there, but it was there. And immediately the airplane decelerated rapidly. And now I'm 3/4 of the way down the runway, and I don't have enough speed to take off. And I don't have enough distance to stop the airplane before it hits the fence at the end of the runway. So I'm thinking, this is not a good situation, you know. So I decided instantly I don't have room to stop the airplane, so I don't have any choice. I got to try to fly this thing. And so I put a little bit of flaps down, which increased my ability to create more lift. I pushed the throttles all the way up to the firewall, and I was able to pull the airplane off the ground while the stall horn was going on, telling me you're within 10 miles an hour of stalling this airplane, where it's going to quit flying. And that was very scary. And I pushed my yoke, my controls column forward to try to increase some speed to get that stall horn to stop. And I couldn't get it to stop because I was so close to stalling the airplane, which meant I would have gone into the ground. But I was going toward a building that was 100 feet tall, and the fence was a chain link fence about 5 or 6 feet high that I had to get over. So I barely get over that fence, and in front of me is a 10-story building, office building, that I was too close to it to climb over it. I couldn't climb over it. So I had to fly around it, and I had to do a real steep turn to get around the airplane. I forgot to mention, I hit that flock of seagulls. I hit it, and I killed about 8 seagulls, and it was blood and guts all over the windshield of the airplane. And I've got my customer sitting in the right hand side, you know. And anyway, I'm finally able to stop the stall warning horn because I got the airplane going fast enough. I was able to fly around the building and started to climb. And I didn't say anything, you know. And the owner, my passenger, my customer said, "Well, that was a pretty exciting takeoff." And I said, "Yeah, I said, I don't normally kill as many seagulls as I did, so. And I said, but if you like that, wait till you see my landings. And there was no comment from, but anyway, we were, yeah, that's right. So,
Did you close the deal?
no, I didn't even sell the deal. I just showed him the land. I spent hundreds of dollars just taking him there and back, and he didn't buy the property.
Part of the reason he didn't.
But, what do you say? I could have said, well, yeah, I almost killed both of us.
You should be thankful I did, right?
So instead I said, oh, well, if you like that, you're gonna love my landings.
So tell everybody where you're located. If you want anybody to contact you, your email address.
No, I don't do that anymore. I mean, I don't fly anymore.
For more stories, more like this.
Oh, for more stories? Oh,
Don't tell anymore. Tell them how people can reach you. You want to give me your email address?
And don't violate the, no.
Okay, never mind.
Witness protection.
Thank you.
yeah,
Thanks for those stories, and we'll have you back to give you more.
that'll be $10.
Okay.
What a good deal.
I don't do this for nothing.
Made my day.
So which one do you like the best? The guy throwing up or the seagulls?
They were both neck and neck. I mean, I was in suspense for both of those presentations.
Goes up.
Yeah.
Okay, so thanks everybody for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed these two very different presentations, intentionally so. And we'd like to have more people sharing what your passions are, what your interests are. So reach out to us if you have something that you'd like to share with the community. If you like the podcast, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and click the notification bell. We do this about once a week for either Thrive Quail Forest, located in Tampa Bay, or Thrive Co-Living Communities in general. So go to thrivecolivingcommunities.org to find out more, and click the Quail Forest link to find out more about our particular community here. So thanks to the guys.
Need to have them here in about 5 minutes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
So lots of commotion here at the Village Inn in Oldsmar. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Thank you for spending time with us today on the Quail Forest Community Podcast. And thanks to Tom Lang and Tod Eckhouse for sharing your stories. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and click the notification bell so you never miss a conversation. And most importantly, tell a neighbor about the podcast this week. That's how a community grows. And we're looking for other interesting residents and resources to interview on the podcast. So please send them our way. If you know of a neighbor who has a really interesting background, profession or former profession, interests, side interests, or hobbies, send them our way. We would love to interview them. Our contact information is down in the show notes below. So see you next time. Thanks for joining us.